Okay, so I have this little scene here with a very basic model, and we are going to create a custom shader for this. So one thing I wanted to point out before getting started is something that is commonly, it's a common error, especially between beginners, which is that sometimes when we have a material that has some part of reflection, what we do is try to tint that reflection in the color of the material. Like if we have a red plastic, we put some red reflections on it, and wow, it looks so amazing. The problem is it's not realistic, because I invite you to do this test now. I'm going to do it really quick, right? So we have time for questions later, or if I have some other demonstrations ready. So I invite you to just take a look around you, and anything that you have around you made of plastic, for example, or if you have anything, just if it's red plastic or if it's black plastic, if you move it or you change your point of view, you will see that the reflections are actually white. Unless you have a yellow light in the room, in which case they will be yellow, all right? They are white, or they take the color of the lamp. So this is a specific thing about the lighting, which makes that only metals are able to tint the reflections. I'm no scientist, but for what I have learned, it's apparently because there is some kind of magnetic field around metallic objects, and this magnetic field makes the color to be tinted in the color of the metal, all right, in those reflections. So we have here two different types of materials. We have metals that can tint reflections and non-metals that cannot tint reflections. Reflections are going to be always white. So what I will do here is create a very simple custom material that has different options that allows us to switch between metal and plastic, but we can change the color and the amount of reflections and these sort of things very quickly. Okay, so first we're going to see how to create a plastic shader. And for that, I'm going to use a diffuse base, okay? And we typically do this, all right? We drop a mix shader, and then we add a glossy shader on top of it. And sometimes people say, oh, this is already some kind of plastic or metal, whatever. I'm going to actually add this material to, let me just drop it in the plastic part of this. Okay. One thing I want to point out before we continue is that I have the Node Wrangler add-on turned on. All right, so if sometimes you see me just Control-Shift clicking on a node and it's automatically connected to the output, that's what's happening, okay? All right, so this is light gray, and I will just apply the same material to all of the parts so we can see what's going on. Here too. Okay. All right, so we have this, which is just a mix between a diffuse and a glossy. Now, what happens in reality is that, if now I turn this into a red color, if we want a red plastic, for example, yes, we have some kind of a cool material because it has its reflections, and the reflections are white because we are keeping this in white. If we turn it red, suddenly it doesn't look like a plastic anymore. It looks like more metallic, okay, because the reflections are being tinted. Okay, so let's keep this on white for now. But what we actually need to do is to take in account something that happens in nature, which is the Farinelli effect. And the Farinelli effect makes it that the areas of the object that we are seeing in front of us, the parts of the object that are perpendicular to our point of view, are totally diffuse or just a very little reflectance, but the ones that are in grazing angles are more reflective. So we are going to drop here a Farinelli effect. Let's go here, add a Farinelli. We could add a layer weight as well. If you have here under Farinelli, there is the layer weight. They work similarly, they have different options, but for now, we're just going to stick with a Farinelli. And so now, if I just Control-Shift click on this, you can see in black and white what happens with this Farinelli. The parts of the object are kind of parallel to our point of view. You can see how they turn white, and the ones that are looking towards us are more dark. And as we move, this effect moves as well. We are basically using this as a mask for controlling the amount of reflectance around the object. So if I jump again to the mix shader, you can see how at this point this is almost totally reflective, and from here it's totally diffuse. This has an advantage over using only the mix shader without this and just using the factor, and is that in order to let us see the reflection, it has to take away from the diffuse. So we are not totally seeing this red color, but when we drop this, we see more of the red color, and we only have some little theme for the reflections. Now I have to say before we continue that what I'm using here is this scene has a sun lamp, and it has, as you can see, an HDRI in the background. All right, so we have some nice reflections. So there you can see the reflections, and this is obviously too high. We need to put it in a rough. We add a little roughness to it. Okay, now the cool thing about this is that if we were to say that these are reflections, all right, this is plastic, the reflections are going to be always white, but we can adjust its brightness to control the amount of reflection. So if we make it darker, we take reflections away from this mix. Okay, and we let more red come through. And another cool thing is that we can change the color of the base, and if we want to make this plastic blue, for example, it's going to still be, keeping the same reflections on top. So this would be it for the plastic material. Now we need to take a look at the metallic material, and I will keep it really simple. So I will basically just use a glossy material. All right, and this, you can see that out of the bat, it looks already like a metal. And if I change it to a color like I don't know, something like this, like to make it like golden, you can see how it the reflections are tinted that color, and so it looks more metallic. And we have no diffuse at all, because metals, if we want to achieve a metallic effect with something like this, with the diffuse typically is actually black or almost black. What you see from a metal are basically its reflections. So that's why I'm going to keep it really simple. It would be actually more complex to make it real, but for now I'm going to just leave it as a glossy material. So now we are going to turn this into a node group, and this node group will have different options that will allow us to change between plastic and glossy and control the amount of reflections. So I'm going to just add another mix shader on top of this. There we go. Control it here. And so basically here we have all the options already. We can control the roughness. Okay, if we want this to look more with more knitted reflections or rougher reflections. We can control the roughness here too, or we can control the amount of metal and plastic, because with this second mix shader that I added, I'm controlling basically the two inputs. In one of the inputs I have the plastic shader, and in the second one I have the metal shader. So by changing to 1, I see the metal only, and by changing to 0, I'm seeing the plastic only. Okay, but I want these two materials to share the color, for example, and the roughness, so it's easier to set up and just switch between plastic and metal very quickly. Oh, these are amazing presentations. This is a question. Well, the answer should be thank you then, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to switch to turn this into a node group. Let's select all these with a box selection, pressing B, and just press Control G. Okay, so now if we press Tab, we can enter and go out of the node group, and this group will be, for example, plastic metallic shader. These things that I'm explaining have something to do with the PBR thing that is going on lately. It's getting very popular. It's been very popular in video games especially, but it's starting to be also very popular in 3D software like Blender too. Mainly, I think, because there are coming up different software that allow us to create PBR materials very quickly, the maps, the textures, right? Like Substance Painter and Quixel and things like that. And so it's getting so easy to create this kind of textures that people want to be able to implement them on Blender too, and other software. So yeah. Okay, so here I have this group, and here I have the group inputs. So what I need to do is to connect these nodes into the inputs in order to give this node outside different parameters that I can control from inside the group out here. So let's control, for example, I won't be touching the Fresnel, okay, in a very cool material that if we had more time, we could add more to it. But right now, I only want to control the color, all right? So I will just connect the color to this input. So now I have here a color, okay? And I want to control the two colors of the plastic and the metal at the same time. So I just connect both of them in the same input, okay? So now if I go outside, I can change the color of both materials at the same time. Okay, now I want to control the roughness as well. So let's just put the roughness in there, and the roughness of the two of them will be connected to the same input as well. And finally, I want to be able to switch between plastic and metal. So let's connect the factor from the second mist shader into the group input. There we go. There we have a factor. Now I want to reorder and name these inputs so it's easier to understand what's going on. So let's go here, and I pressed End to open this this panel here, and I have the color, I have the roughness, and I have the factor. Now the factor at 0 is plastic, and at 1 it's metal. So I want to keep that order in the name. I can double click this name here to change it, or I can just click here and rename it, and let's call it plastic and metal. Okay, and I want this to be on top. So let's just put it on top there. All right. Now for the plastic, I want to be able to control the amount of reflections as well. So I will just select this color, but what I want actually is to be able to control a factor, not a color, because a color could be confusing, and I could accidentally add color to it when the plastic only has white reflections. So I will be just connecting here a factor, okay, something like a factor. You can see that the roughness is not a color, it's a factor. And so now I have a factor here, which is, if you can see here on the group node, on the node group, sorry, this is roughness again, but it's a slider. And that's what I need. So I can only tweak between black and white. So I connect this to this color, all right? And instead of roughness, I will call it plastic reflections, for example. That's perfect. And so now if I go outside here to the node group, I could just tweak between plastic and metal. All right, I could change the color and make it, for example, blue plastic. Okay, so now this would be plastic. I can control the reflections amount. Okay, I can bring them down to 0 or just give them more weight. I could control the roughness. And this is somehow roughness. Okay, the roughness, I made a mistake here. I connected the roughness of the diffuse and not the glossy. Okay, so this is something I should do. We could control the roughness of the diffuse too, but don't really need to. So now you can see how the reflections of the plastic can also be very, very rough or less rough. Okay, and we can switch just to metal, and we are going to switch to a metal material, but it will keep the same tweaks. It will keep the roughness, and the reflections only affect the plastic, so we don't need to care about that. But it also keeps the color. All right. So we already have our plastic metallic shader, very basic one, but hopefully you have learned some things about the advantages of using node groups and group nodes or node groups. Yeah, node groups, I think it is. So that's pretty nice. And one of the other advantages of doing this is that you can actually just import this same node group from another file and reuse it very quickly. So you don't need to build all this setup again. And this is very useful when you find yourself repeating different setups of nodes. You can just create a node group and just load it whenever you want to use it. Because now if I, for example, go to a different object here, okay, this would be the red material and for these two buttons. So let's very quickly create it. I can just focus this camera here and just press Shift A. And now in the node list, okay, if we go to group, you can see that under this make group and ungroup, I have a list of the available groups in this file. So if I click this, I can automatically create this one, okay, this one that I created, and just drop it there. Now I can change the color, all right, and make it the color that I actually want. And I want it to be plastic, and the reflections, I want them to be quite high, but not rough at all. And there you have them. Very quick way of creating a material. I could repeat the same for the other objects. For example, this one, this is the gray material. So very quickly. And let me just explain one more thing here. If I go to this original group, I enter in it with tab, press N to access the options. And there is something that is interesting here. We can control the default values when the material is created. So here in the color, I want to set it to white. So let's just set this to white. The plastic metal, I want it to 0. The roughness, I want it on 0 too. And the plastic reflections, I want it on 0.5. All right. So now, whenever I create this material again in another object, okay, like here in this pad, let's press Shift A, go to the groups, add the plastic material shader, connect it to the surface, and we are already seeing the basic setup. The default setup, which is, as you can see, these options at 0 and the color on white. Now I can control, of course, the color. I want to make this darker, something like that. And I think these reflections are probably quite good, but I could take them off a little and increase the roughness, something like that. And we already have this material. We could repeat the same for the rest of the objects. I still have some time, so I will very quickly do it. This is the light gray, so let's make it just plastic, almost very basic reflections and a little bit of roughness. Okay, I could go to this other one and I had already materials assigned, so I could do this very quickly, okay? But I can go to the group, add a plastic, and very quickly set it up again. This one a little darker than the other. I should have textures for the Nintendo and things around here, but I want to keep this very simple. So just increase the roughness a little. This is plastic, a little darker. And now for the cable. In the cable, we have the light gray. So let's add the cable material and just this thing that we did at the beginning, delete it. Just go here to the group, add a metallic shader, connect it. And for this one, I want a little more interesting reflections, maybe, to make it look like it has some kind of a rubber cover. And so just increase the reflections a little bit. And plastic, make it gray. Okay. And so we have our model shaded. There we are. You can see how quick it is to just shade a model once we have this kind of groups already created. Okay, now let me check if there is some question that I can answer. Okay, we are fine. Oh, someone's talking in the chat. Yeah. You mean if I can just create some kind of node that save these nodes inside it, that we can just then load a whole library into a different file? Do you mean that? Because I know that, for example, okay, so let me just very quickly add a very quick setup here. Just, okay, this makes no sense. This one makes no sense, but just to have two different groups. Okay, so I have grouped this other one. I have two node groups, and this will be second group. What I can do is to just select both of this, nest them into another group, okay? Just have them there. We don't need to have them even connected, I think. And this one, I can call it node library. And so now if I save this file and I open a new file, I'm pretty sure I can, for example, append, and I can go to the, let me just find that model. Should be this one. I can go inside the blend file and add, for example, node tree, and I have here the node library. So just, I have all of them available, all right? But if I just load the node library, all of them should be inside. So if I open this, maybe we can access to the node editor, use nodes, and when I press Shift A, I have here the node library, but I have the ones that are inside the node library too. Okay, so I can add the plastic metallic shader here, or I can add the second group that I created. Is that answer the question? Let me just quickly. Yeah, okay. Okay, because I don't know how to go to the chat right now. Okay, chat, okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so in the 10 minutes that are left, I will make a very quick demonstration about another thing that I find very useful. And let's make this smooth. Okay, and this is for making random colors for a node, for a material, sorry. So I can have a material on this one. Let's make it rendered, and let's add a quick light. Sun. Okay, this has no diffused yet, so let's quickly create a diffuse material. All right, so let's say we have this, okay? It's just a ball, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to make it this material in a way that randomly, depending on the number of objects that we have in the scene, it randomly assigns different colors to different objects, keeping the same material, but adding different colors to it. This is very useful. For example, imagine that we have a scene with a river, and you know these little curvy, smooth stones that are next to the river. Well, we can just drop a whole bunch of stones there, but have them pick different colors randomly between a given spectrum. So for example, these kind of stones could be between brown and pink, okay? And we can make them pick a random color between that spectrum, and so we don't have to assign manually different colors to different stones, okay? So let's do that. And for that, I'm going to start by getting here an input node, and this will be the, let me check, object info. And inside object info, we can access information like the location or the object index and stuff. Based on the location, we can make an object change its some different parameters depending on its location on the world. However, what we want to pick now is the random. And if I connect the random to the diffuse, you see that now instead of white, it's actually taking a different color, all right? And if I duplicate it with Shift D, you can see that each time it gets a random different color. It's in sometimes it's very similar, but others is very different, okay? And these ones will be enough, I think. So you can see that basically what's happening is that they are picking randomly a value between black and white. So we can use this as a mask, okay? And we can basically just make this jump through a color ramp. I love this node. All right, so I drop a color ramp here in the middle, And so basically now we can control the colors that we have in these balls. So if I want them to be between red and green, for example, I just go here and set a red one, and the other end, I set it into green. So now the balls will be, fluctuating randomly between the red and green color. However, we have some orange ones in the middle. We maybe don't want orange. We maybe just want green and red. Well, easy enough. We can change this interpolation here at the color ramp to constant. And so now when we move this slider here, you can see how we have only red and green ones. But the cool thing about this is that just sliding this value, we can increase or decrease the number of balls that have each one of the colors. You can see that here we have very little balls with green and a lot of them with red. And if I just move this, it happens the opposite thing. Basically, here from 0 to 1, we have the percentage, let's say the number of chances, right? The chance that a ball, when it's randomly picking a number, it picks red instead of green, for example. So in this case, it's 50%. So it's not totally accurate because this only means that randomly it has the 50% chances of picking this color, all right? But maybe it will pick another one. But still, it's pretty accurate. We could add colors to this. For example, we could add some blue ones, all right? So this is very, very handy for when we want different colors to be applied to different things. And obviously, we can use this node to mix it over a different image. So if we want, for example, in LuxScape, for example, I will give you an example that we actually did. We had a shelf with books. And so we made a few textures for these books. And what we do is composite these on top of the book texture. So we have different colors for the same texture in the different books, right? So yeah, it's pretty handy. Is there some question about this? Did you mean okay, that's animated. So it's for making like the texture for a TB. Is that it? Because I haven't read all the. Okay. Okay, yeah. So you basically would attach an animated texture to an emit node on the TB. But the glows, for example, or if you want a halo around the TV or something like that, you would have to do it in post-production. So after you have the render, in the compositing nodes, you can create that glow effect, but not in the shaders. You can probably make some kind of volumetric stuff around the TB, but it will be much more difficult and time consuming in the render, most probably. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. Can I do a very quick, I'll try to be quick, a last demonstration before the Blender Institute comes in? Okay, so I'm going to create a node that helps us create banners. Okay, let's just quickly create here a different scene. I will just create a plane. All right. So this plane will be our banner. I will create a new material here, banner. All right. And I basically will use again the color ramp, but I will use a gradient here. So let's go to Shift A and from texture, select the gradient texture. And now I will connect it here to the diffuse. So here we have a gradient, okay, that goes from black to white. We could, if we needed to rotate it, for example, we could add a mapping node here before this. And instead of just creating it manually, Node Wrangler has an option that allows us to create it very quickly with Control-T. And it automatically adds a setup connecting the generated, or we could use the UVs as well, all right? But this time I will use the generated. And we could just rotate this. I don't know right now which this will be in, probably 90, no. This one, 90, No. Okay, anyway, we don't have a lot of time, so I will leave it like this for now and just show you an interesting stuff that we can use the color ramp for again. All right, so we have this gradient. The color ramp, basically what it does is convert a gradient into another gradient. So we have from black passing through gray to white. Okay, we're going to use the same interpolation that we used before. So now if we use the constant, you can see that basically we can tweak where the white starts, okay? It's taking basically the values of the original gradient and converting them to this new gradient. So here we could use, for example, I don't know, a banner, okay, whatever country. I'm not thinking about a particular one right now, but I'm thinking about something convenient that I will explain in a moment. So we can have different colors for this banner. Now, very quickly, let's say how to turn this into a group node that allows us to control these colors. Because, for example, we cannot, unfortunately, access to these different colors from outside, okay? Because we don't have inputs in the color ramp. We only have the factor, the gradient that we can input in. So what I will do is to control exactly this one so they are in the right position. So they will be at 0.33, and this one will be at 0.66. So we have a third of each color. Now, let's just tweak these colors. So they will be, let me just check this out. Okay, this is perfect because we have blue, red, and green. But I will just change them a little. So we have the red one first. We have the blue one later. Okay, just add a blue there. And just add green here. Sorry, actually the green should be in the middle. Okay, and the blue, the last one. All right, we have to make sure that these are the red and green in the blue one, for example, are on 0 and so on. Because now what we are going to do is to separate these colors. So when I go here, I can Shift A, go to Converter, add a separate RGB, and look how cool. Now I can access the different colors. If I switch through these outputs, you can see how I have a different mask for each one of the colors. So right now I can basically just create here two mix nodes. Let's go to color, add a mix RGB and another mix RGB. Okay. Actually, this one here will be in the color one. Okay, I want you to keep attention to pay attention to these connections. And now we will have the red one is really not needed because we are going to overlap the other two. So we are going to only to pick the green. Okay, it'll go here, and the blue will go here. So now if I see the result of this, right now they are different colors, but now I can actually control these different three colors. Okay, so if I now turn this into a group, I can select all these guys. Just delete this one. I can select this and turn this into a group with Control G. And now here in the group input, I can bring it here and just connect the three colors. So I have color 1, color 2, and color 3. And right now from outside the group, I can control the different colors. Just connect it to the surface. And wait a second, I have to connect this output right here. And instead of R, I'm going to call it banner, for example. And so now somehow it's not working properly. I don't know what happens. Wait a second. Oh, okay. This output is a gray output, so it's only a grayscale. I should create a new one. And this one I can select from here, from the end panel, and delete it. And this one I can call it banner now. And when I connect it to the diffuse, now I have control. And I can create, for example, the Spanish banner. Because I'm from Spain. I didn't say it before. And we have a Spanish banner. So it's you can see that the cycles is very, very powerful. The nodes are really amazing, and you can create really a lot of different crazy effects and interesting effects if you use the nodes in a clever way. So just play with them and find ways of using them like this. Like creating a banner probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but hopefully it gives you an understanding of what the color ramp node can do. And now, if we don't have any other questions, I think we can switch for the Blender Institute. I'm trying to read the here, but and we okay, perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Right. You got it right. Yeah. I will write it in the chat. Lentus.com. You can check tutorials there. Okay. I will be in the chat now. Okay. So nice being here, and see you soon. Goodbye.